we spoke to so many athletes when we did those interviews, and it was just like the one thing that was always common was, man, we wish more people could put eyes on this,
Hmm.
because that's all it takes, honestly, B Dub. All it takes is more eyes on that sport. Somebody to be like, wow, I want to be like this person. Oh wow, man, I got a couple mil that I can spend on owning a team and funding a team and getting a WNBA team to Boston, right? Like, why not, right? Like, grow the sport, allow more people to see the sport, and I promise you, the funds that people say aren't there, they'll show up. They'll show up.
What up? It's your boy Blue Magic, owner of For Your Wear and one half of the Mixed Tag Show. Now, I know you've seen the announcement for some of your favorite podcasts in wrestling. I've decided to expand my business to become a vendor so that people from the wrestling community have a better way to communicate with some of their favorites. So check out foryourwear.com and see if your favorite podcast on wrestling has partnered up with me. If not, let them know that they should. Also, if you're looking for a vendor for your merchandise, reach out to me at Blue Magic Grind, spell how it's found on Twitter and Instagram, or at ForYourWear, FORURWEAR, on Twitter and on Instagram. Shout out to Brian H. Waters and Breaking Through Glass Ceiling. Their merchandise are already up, and they're one of the first ones that supported, so go support them. Alright? Peace.
It's been almost 9 years since I started at ESPN. And I say time flies. But the beauty of that is that I've met a lot of great people that will remain in my life forever. You can see that by checking out many episodes of this podcast. Today's guest is another former ESPN colleague of mine, a good brother by the name of Luis Sanchez. Luis and I, not only were we colleagues, but we were also neighbors in Bristol, Connecticut. So we spent a lot of time working together, but also hanging out after work. One of the things that I always respected about him was the fact that he was always determined to do what he wanted to do, and that being working in women's sports. He created his brand MyW Sports, which highlights and covers women's sports the way they should be. And when he left ESPN, he was able to take his brand to a new level. So we talk about that. We also talk about his time working as a dean, helping kids at a charter school who may be misunderstood. And then we also talk about his 10-year broadcasting career. So, ladies and gentlemen, here is my conversation with Luis Sanchez. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as promised, I have a good friend of mine, one of my best friends from the 4-letter, the one, the only, the women's sports connoisseur, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Luis Sanchez. Luis, how you doing, bro?
I'm good, man. How are you, B Dub? It's good. It's good. It's good. It's good to be here, man. It's like I've seen so many people bless these airwaves, and now I get to be with you, sit down, and catch up. So I like that.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you coming through, man. It's been such a long time. Obviously a long time since we've seen each other in person, but we was talking before we got the recording. During the pandemic, man, we was all holding each other down with the MLB The Show that year.
we had a nice little lead there. I think it was like 6 people. We had a little rotation on schedule, making sure people were playing their games. It was good. And then I think after the first season, people realized the competition. I think when I mean people, I mean I realized the competition was a lot better than I had anticipated. So I guess I quiet quit the MLB. The MLB did.
But it was funny because the cool part was that you did bring a community together because, the group chat is still active. Shout out to MLB 2020 as listed in my iPhone, because we don't do green bubbles around here. But, it's a lot of good people, and then, we all see each other, every now and again there's a chat that go through, it'll definitely be fun as we get ready to record before the playoffs get ready to start. So I'm pretty sure there'll be some trash talking. I know some Dodgers fans in there. What's the guy's name? Because I could not beat him for nothing.
Was it Justin or Justin's
Yes.
brother? Justin was good. Justin
Yeah.
Justin had a squad. Yeah.
He did.
But no, you're right. I think the cool thing about that is like you're saying is like every once in a while you get like, hey, yo, congratulations on this, or like, oh, yo, good job on winning the championship. It's like we don't have to keep in touch every single day, but it's like every once in a while somebody sends a message to that group and you're like, oh, okay, what's up, man? Hope you guys are doing well,
Exactly, man. How you feeling before we get started talking about your career and stuff?
I'm good, man. Honestly, I'm good. It's been a long time coming. I think, we grow up thinking that things come a lot easier, and then you get to be an adult and you got to put in the work, and you get humbled by certain things, you learn lessons, and as long as you take those lessons and you keep going and you keep applying them, I think you're all right. So I know we were talking ahead of time, it's good to find that happiness. It's good to find the things that
Yeah.
make you happy and just do them.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. So yeah, let's get started, man. Now, the thing that I learned about you when we first met in the cold, cold Bristol, Connecticut, was your start into sports was actually through security and vending, right?
Yeah.
You got to work with your favorite team, those Boston Red Sox. I don't
Those
hate the Red Sox
Boston Red
like
Sox.
that.
Well, why? 'Cause they're in last place, so that you can't hate them. Is that why?
Wait, that sounded so good. Oh.
See, I don't have to say it again. You could just cut that and repeat it and play it back.
I know, right? But yeah, you got started there. Now, while you were there, right? How much of an itch did you get to be on the broadcast or the production side?
Well, the cool thing about working at Fenway is when I got started as a vendor, the home plate vending location was right, literally by the Red Sox clubhouse. So when I
Mhm.
was coming into work, you'd see like Don Arcillo or Jerry Remy kind of chilling by the Red Sox clubhouse. And so Jerry Remy, he just passed away, and thoughts and condolences, but he was a longtime broadcaster, former player for the Red Sox, and he's out there, hours before a game outside of the clubhouse, just talking to players when they came in. So for me, that was cool, and I got to see Manny, I got to see David Ortiz, I got to see them grow as players. And I think for me, the cool thing was see them outside of baseball, right? Like to see them coming in to work, right? Talking to their kids when they were coming in, stopping by the Dunkin' Donuts stand I was working at, um, getting to meet athletes at a young age, getting to meet broadcasters at a young age, and kind of like seeing them work, hearing them work. For me, it led to like, yeah, it led to like, okay, that's a possibility one day.
Mhm.
And to be honest, when I went to college, I didn't, it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to be a sports broadcaster. I went to college. I wanted to be a CPA for Deloitte. I wanted to work for one of
Oh,
these big
wow.
five corporations and be an accountant and go to Dubai and spend money on cars, and then things quickly changed.
What was it that changed and what led you to wanting to get into broadcasting?
Ah, man, that's a good one. I really wanted to do music when I got to BC,
Mhm.
as like a club thing, as something to kind of, fill my time. I got accepted into the business school, so that was like step one. Was when I got to BC, like I'm in the business school, like it's a really good business school. But I during clubs day, I was trying to be a DJ. I was like, let me go find the radio station, and they didn't play like hip hop and R&B. They played like indie music and underground music, and I was like, okay. And I was gonna walk away, and somebody was like, "Hey, are you interested in sports?" And I had played sports my entire life. I mean, I grew up a baseball fan. I was a captain of my basketball team. Like sports were just life for me.
Mhm.
So they were like, "Hey, yeah, you can sign up. You'll broadcast games. You can cover games." And then they were like, "Hey, you could also write for the newspaper." And I was like, "No, I don't really feel. I'm not a writer. I'm not. I'm good at storytelling, but I'm not good at writing." So I signed up, and like during the first I don't know, meeting, they were just like, "Hey, like, we want you guys to like kind of do the sports as you would, and get out there, and whether it's a women's sports, whether it's like a club sport, we just want you guys to get the exposure." Um, and I'll never forget this guy, Tim Shanahan. He works for MLB Network now. He was my sports director my freshman year, and he was just like, "Man, we don't have a lot of people like you here, so I hope you stay with it." And I
Wow.
know exactly what he meant. I know exactly what
Mhm.
he meant. He didn't mean it in any negative tone, but I knew exactly what he meant. And from that day on, I was like, "Look, I want to be a sports director here. I want to be the first Latino sports director at Boston College." So that's kind of how it started. And then once I got involved, it snowballed. I mean, it's funny because October 2nd, 2008, so about 14 years ago this month,
Wow.
that's when I first got my first broadcast.
Wow. You remember the game? You remember, like,
I
any
remember the game. I remember the score. I remember I said like four things throughout the entire broadcast. I was petrified. I was scared. But it was October 2nd, Boston College women's soccer against the University of Miami. and BC won that game 4-1. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 4-1. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's 4-1.
Now you said it was a women's soccer game. When did your love for women's sports start?
Oh, early on. I mean,
Okay.
for me, Cheryl Swoops was one of the first people I saw. I mean, even Brandy Chastain. I was watching that World Cup as a 9-year-old. Like when I saw Brandy Chastain score that game-winning PK, and she's out there celebrating, and then she was on the cover of, I think it was Sports Illustrated. So a lot of these female athletes that I guess you and I we grew up in our lifetime, they were kind of on some things. They were on magazines, they were on commercials, and so it wasn't for me when I got to like covering sports in college. It was like, who wants to cover women's sports? I was like, I'll cover it. It's a sport. It was like, why? Oh, nobody wants to cover women's sports. Why? Because it's women's sports. Like so
Mhm.
I did them all, and I did women's hockey from like the control room. I did women's basketball from courtside. I did soccer from on top being cold on a November night. Like for me, it didn't matter. For me, it was like I was covering sports. It didn't matter if it was male, female. It just they were athletes out there playing the sports that I love to watch, and some of them I got to know. I didn't know too much about soccer. I knew soccer, but I didn't know too much about it, and I got to learn more about the game. Same thing with like field hockey and lacrosse.
Yeah, man. Now, um, let's shift. 2013, you go to the 4 letter, and you was there. You started July, right?
Yeah, July. Yeah.
Yeah, so you started July to me starting in September, and the first thing I remember, because if you remember, um, my first day you wasn't there, and then that Friday when I just assumed I was gonna be working by myself because like no, our schedule is like Sunday through Thursday. You was there, and that was really the chance where we really got to like talk, and I was like, and it just like clicked. But one of the things, the first thing I remember was you said you wanted to own your own women's sports network. Um, when you so before we get into MyW Sports, what was it like when you first arrived to the campus in Bristol, Connecticut?
Oh, it's a dream come true. Uh,
Mhm.
I think the first time I went down there, they get you down there for like a pre interview, like an in person interview, and we
Yep.
were in a quad of four. And our boy Quincy was in
Shout out
my
to
group.
Quincy.
Shout out to Quincy. Quincy was in my group, and man, I remember. And I think Jasmine was in that group too. We
Oh,
all go down.
wow.
Yeah, I think it was a good like 16 of us, and we were in quads of four, if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
And all I remember was like going to the campus and feeling like, all right, this is in the middle of nowhere. Like, this isn't LA. This isn't Boston. This isn't New York. Like, where are the sidewalks? Where's just life? Where are people? That was the first thing I thought about. Literally, I wasn't concerned about, oh, I'm gonna get this job or anything. It was literally like, where am I? Like,
Mhm.
in middle of nowhere, Connecticut. And then I got inside. I got inside the campus, and I was like, "Oh, this is college. This is college on steroids. This is literally if you want to be an undergrad in like a sports specific college. Like you got a calf, you've got gyms, you've got people who are just willing to talk about sports anywhere you go. Like uh
Mhm.
for me it was a dream come true. I'm a kid who, grew up in the inner city. Literally my mom kicked me out when I was 13. I was out on the streets. I didn't think going to college was a thing. So having a job at ESPN would have never crossed my mind, right? And I'm down there and I'm just like, I got to nail this interview. And I did, and I nailed it, and I got the job, and I moved down from Boston. It was the first time I left Boston, and like just first time I was gone from the state of Massachusetts.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I got down there and I just wanted to do everything right. I wanted to, any job that I got down there, I wanted to make sure that I learned it, I mastered it, I passed it on, and just kept going, and that was kind of my goal when I got down there.
Yeah, man, and, one of the things I wanna publicly say is, I appreciate you, when I got there, last week on here, we had Lucas Haskins, and Lucas and I both went, come from the Maryland area, and you know, we was all in the sales quality control group together. Shout out to Audra, shout out to John Rosenberg as
Sales
well.
QC.
Sales QC, man, and I remember getting there not knowing what the heck is a sales QC, and, you had to watch the games or watch the events. I like doing the events. The studio shows. It was much easier, but I want to give a shout out to you because, like I said, that transition, you made it, easy, helping me understand, okay, look, it's work, but we're gonna have some fun while we're here. We all from a different state. I didn't go away to college. I went to Morgan State, lived at home. So that was like when LeBron said that going to Miami was like college, I felt it. I felt it, man. But and the cool thing was when Xbox One came out. And by this time, we you live next door,
Yep.
and we could sit there and just have fun outside of work as well. So I definitely want to appreciate that. Appreciate you for that. One side note, I'm gonna drop this nugget here to everybody. When I found out my daughter was born on the way, um, I told Luis, and it was like this one. So let's get real here. Let's get real because I had a couple moments where Luis was like my personal psychologist. Before we go into the happy moment, we'll go into the angry moment. There was one night, came home from work, and I was angry. It was this producer. He knew exactly what I'm talking about.
I do.
He gave everybody the blues. And when I tell y'all I was mad, I'll just tell y'all this. I had to do the Cubs and Cardinals game that night. And he was like, I specifically said I was looking for this, looking for that. And I'm like, you mother. And you know what's funny though? What was funny is what I'm about to tell you. I seen this dude at NABJ in Miami in 2019. I didn't speak, but and I remember thinking like, what's he here? What is he
Why is
here?
he?
And somebody said they went up to him and said, you're one of them faces that you'll never forget. But I came home and I talked to Luis, and before I went in the house, because I didn't want to take the anger in the house, and he was a good brother, just sitting there, it's like, look, man, I understand, we all done been through it, just keep pressing, you got this, and that's the beauty of having what was the chance of that? Because first of all, you didn't even live in Bristol yet, but I
Yeah.
remember you came to work, it's like, bro, I'm moving, like I think we're neighbors, and then your apartment was literally right next door to mine.
I was living in hard hitting New Britain. Yeah. I was like, I gotta get out of New Britain, man. This reminds me too much of home. I gotta get back. I gotta get closer to work, stay out of trouble. So yeah.
Mhm.
So honestly, for me, bro, it was cool because I had been there, right? Like
Mhm.
it was like, oh, I remember my first day of like, this is not it. This is not somebody's trying me, and
Mhm.
like I'm not the right person. And like, but at the end of the day, like you realize, like, nah, you know what? Like we're grinding. We gotta grind. Like that, what was the CAP program? The CAP program was a grind. Like if you wanted to stay in studio production, if you wanted to like be a producer and that was the path you wanted to go, it
Mhm.
works, but it's a grind, right?
Yep.
And they put you in different test, and it makes it hard because you think you're like, oh, I finally mastered this, and it's like, nah, you're moving on to something else. So I got it. I understood where that frustration was coming from, and so for me it was just like, don't let it let up, because it's a grind to the point where people leave, right? People are
Yeah.
like, this isn't for me and I'm done, and that's it, and they go, and I just didn't want to see you go, bro.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And then, probably about 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later,
Yeah, it's about a month. Honestly, it was about a month. Yeah.
as a result of that night, I came to you, I said, "Bro, guess what? I I'm gonna be a dad." And you was like, "You're gonna be a man, give me a hug."
Yeah.
And I will forever remember that, bro, because like just that moment, man, like you don't want to tell everybody yet because it's so early, but you are we instantly became brothers. And so I had to tell you, like I remember like when my parents came up and you had just moved in and introduced you to my dad and whatnot, and I was like, "Yeah, that's my boy." I said, like, he lived next door. I said, "So it's great, like, I got somebody who lived next door, whatever, whatever." And it was just like I said, being able to share that moment with you, man, and that like that, I guess I'll always remember like that embrace, like, man, and so we had some good times, man.
Yeah, and honestly, like it goes both ways, right? Like I had some
Mhm.
hard times when I was at ESPN. I had some bad days, and there's very few people who have my back, right? And you were
Mhm.
one of them. And I think, I thank you every day, bro. Honestly, like it's for me, it was like, wow, like there are people who know, right? Who know me
Mhm.
and know, like I just want to bust my butt and work hard, right? Like I want to make this dream a reality. And
Yeah.
so to have you in my corner, to have like people like Mike, right? Mike Opperman, shout out to
Shout
the
out to Mike.
operator, right? Like it for me, it was just like, wow, like we come from a background where we got to support each other,
Mhm.
and for me, like it was no doubt that like you said, we became brothers instantly. We were like you said, we came home from a 1 a.m. shift and we're playing Madden
Yeah.
and NBA until 4 o'clock in the morning so we could fall asleep, right? Like
Mhm.
so there was just things that help build that relationship. And
Even though I'm gonna blame you for the 2014 Orioles because I was coming to work cocky every day, every morning, and I remember you sitting at the computer just like this. The Royals are motivated, bro. The Royals are motivated. I'm like, we good, we good, and I'll be doggone. I remember game 2, watching it with you. Adam Jones finally hits a home run in the playoffs. His first home run in the playoffs, and then it was like, and then the thing is, all the games was close. And I remember asking you, I said, because I like game 1 hurt. And for some reason, because it was like, wait, we could lose? Because like we swept the Tigers. But then I said, yo, how did you deal with 2003?
yeah, it was heartbreaking, man. It was
Look, I gotta
heartbreaking.
ask you this. Did you watch the Jeter doc?
Yes.
So did it because you obviously we're both like, well, I mean, they're more y'all rivalry, obviously.
Yeah.
Did it make you like, you know what? He wasn't that bad of a guy. Or you still like, no.
So So no, I mean it goes two ways. All right, this is hard. It's hard to answer.
Uh,
So with Jeter, I always respect great players. No,
mhm.
even if they're my rivals, I always will respect a great player. Jeter was a great player. Now, I grew up where Jeter sucks, Yankees suck. Like that's just it is
Mhm.
what it is. You don't root for anything Yankee. It's just that's what it is. This documentary really gave us some insight on like the Yankees and how for me how they felt about 2004.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to know about. Like my first reaction to the doc was, "Oh, I got to find out what '04 was about and how much
Mhm.
it bothered them." Um and I loved it, bro. I loved every moment of it. I think it got very personal towards the end.
Mhm.
And in some of those docs it could go sideways, right? It could go like this is just too much. I think
Yeah.
in that one they did a good job in just balancing out the people that were like around, the conversations that were being had. So yeah, as a Red Sox fan, I loved it. Honestly, I loved it. I ate it up. I was like, this is awesome. When he was like, I don't want to talk about that anymore. Oh,
Mhm.
life, life.
I'll tell you this, man, when I looked at the Brady one, I was like, I'm glad I didn't see this during his heyday. Cause goodness gracious, I can't say I hate the Patriots no more, but boy,
Well, you can't hate the Patriots when they're like losing games and not
that
competitive.
that sounds so good. It sounds so good,
Man,
because
you
they
you
was
you said that twice already, you
I
know?
know.
We're gonna talk about the Bruins and the Celtics next, and you're gonna be like, "It sounds so good. It sounds so good."
Oh man, but no, because yeah, them Celtics, those '08 Celtics, I'm like, nah, we had no chance. Uh,
No,
but
but you got your redemption. You got your
yeah.
redemption.
But yeah, back to ESPN though. When you what was like some of your favorite shifts that you got to work on there? Because we'll talk about where they dropped their ball at. Thank you for listening to the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. You can support this podcast by going on foryourwear.com. Go to personalities and see Brian H. Waters. There you can get Breaking Through Glass Ceilings t-shirt or a hoodie, as well as a No Ceilings Above Success t-shirt. Go to foryourwear.com. Make sure you also check out some of the other podcasters and professional wrestlers as well. Yeah, so what was like some of your favorite shifts when you was working at ESPN, like during a rotation?
Honestly, you're right. QC we didn't know nothing about, but I think it was pretty cool to like scan Sports Center for like advertisements and like, oh, did they hit their promo today?
I
I
thought
don't
it was a
know.
good intro
Yeah, for me it
to
was like, oh, okay.
Connecticut.
And for me, my favorite was obviously TBU. Man, Tease Bump. I got to cut the opening mantra to ESPN. I got to cut all the outros to the 11 o'clock, 8 o'clock Sports Centers. I mean, I got so much creative freedom on the Tease Bump unit that I mean, how could I not love that? And then I also got to work in the talent office. So I got to work with
Mhm.
some ESPN talent, Randy Scott, who's still there, Matthew Berry, who's still there, Shimona Relborn. I just messed up her name, Ramona Shelburne. uh, yeah, so I got to work with a bunch of people, and I think working in the talent office kind of was like, all right, like I could do this. I could be a broadcaster. I could be an on-air talent. I got personality. I got, I could put on the voice and, so working with the talent was kind of a good reminder of where I was as a broadcaster. And then again, the creative freedom for being on the Tease Bump unit. Like when you're cutting Sports Center openings and people are like, yo, was that yours? Did you cut that? And I'm like, yeah, that was me. That was dope, right? And I just loved it. I love being able to share different sports. I mean, I mixed in judo, I mixed in Brittany Griner dunking. So I just, yeah, anything that I could do to kind of promote different sports is what that job specifically allowed me to do.
Now, was there a time where you worked with an athlete who played for the Yankees or any of your rival teams?
Uh
Or just
not
somebody you like, and then you realize you work on like, wow, they're like the nicest person. Like for me, it was Ryan Clark, right? Getting a chance to like meet him a couple of times and then seeing like, he's the dude that like laid out Ray Rice in the AFC championship game. And I'm like, my cousin's a huge Steelers fan. Why I don't know. He's born and raised in Baltimore. Why would he do that to himself? I don't know. But that night, everything was quiet. He goes, whoa, somebody got knocked out tonight. And that's been like a ongoing soundbite of the rest of that year. So, but then I meet Ryan Clark. He's like the nicest person. I remember you actually the one who put me to the radar because you was working in the talent office and you was like when he had just started, but he was still on the was I think he was with Washington then. And he was like, Ryan Clark is really good. And now look at him, But was there did you have any of those moments?
I definitely remember working with Ryan. I was like, wow, he's if he polishes up, he's gonna be great. Like he's gonna be
Mhm.
great. And I mean, what he's doing now. I mean, shout out
Yep.
to Ryan Clark. I mean, what he's doing now and on his podcast and even just his messages. He sends messages when he sends them on Sports Center or whatever appearance he's doing. It's incredible to see. My biggest surprise was probably Stuart Scott. I think
Okay.
I went in thinking that like, man, this is a dude about the people. He's gonna help everybody. He's gonna like, I don't know. I had this idea, and I had so many bad runnings when I was doing highlights. And that's probably why I hated doing highlights. Highlights is last on my list, by the way. Highlights
Me
was
too.
was just last. It was no bueno. But yeah, I felt like, man, and maybe it was just because I had this idea of who he was on TV, right? And I
Mhm.
didn't know the person. But yeah, for me that was surprising. I think the best person, the best person I worked with has to be Randy Scott. He was funny. He just opened up about life, and I think when you're in that position, you forget that like, as a PA, I'm a person, right? As a content
Mhm.
associate, I'm a person and so I think Randy Scott was really one of the people that was just like I can remember our interactions.
Mhm. That's how it was with me and Robert Flores, and Rob's a huge wrestling fan, and even to this day, sometimes on Twitter we'll talk, but it's always good, like, when you can make those relationships. A lot of times you see people on TV, you think one thing and you can get either or, like, I think one of the things that people are surprised about when I tell them that I used to see Skip Bayless in the bathroom putting his makeup on, and he would have a conversation all the time and thank me for watching First Take. Like, it's Skip Bayless, so it's like you never hear me say nothing bad about Skip.
But then there's the opposite of that, and I think you
Mhm.
remember. I don't know if you know where I'm going with this, but I think you remember we were walking by the ESPNW wing, and I took a second to take in like the history.
Yeah.
And there's two. I won't name them, but there's two anchors who walk down, and they're like, "Nobody care about women's sports." Literally, loud
Wow.
enough for us to hear them and just walk by it like it's nothing. And I think honestly, bro, from that moment on, I was like, I'm gonna put women's sports in everything I do. And
Mhm.
I pretty much did.
It's crazy. I honestly forgot about that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, wow, man. Now, I always said this. They dropped the ball because here you had Luis Sanchez, who knows women's sports, who's passionate about women's sports. What advice would you give to people that maybe is there anything you think you could have done more of to like, you know, make more noise for them to put you in the women's sports division?
Man, I did everything at
Mm,
ESPN to get over to ESPNW. I met with executives. I sent emails, and then I tried to show it in what I was doing. Right, like I think you remember there was a Notre Dame women's basketball highlight, and nobody was using telestrations on women's sports. Right, like it was just like do this 30-second highlight. So I was like, I got 30 seconds. I'm gonna add as much of the fun stuff that I can that I would on a normal highlight.
mhm,
And I just tried. I honestly, I met with as many people as I could, and for me, I guess they wanted to keep me in kind of the line of like the CAP program and staying with like the growth of like being a PA to a content associate to an AP. For me, I wanted to promote it, and even now, you think about. I know we'll talk about MyW, but we're still what 8 years after working at ESPN, 9 years after working at ESPN, and we're still in the same spot with ESPNW. I
mhm,
think and this is for anybody. This is for any network who wants to take it at this point, do it and do it right. ESPNW could be a women's sports network, right? It could literally be ESPNU. It could be ESPN2, but you're just predominantly showing women's sports, and then you have shows that are catered to the women's audience, right? Whether it's athletic based or fitness based or food and health based. There's a whole industry out there that's untapped. and
mhm,
and I just don't, for me it's still mind-blowing that like nobody wants to do that. We're talking about investigations into sexual assault and how bad people are. Okay, there are bad people everywhere. Let's invest. Let's invest in the sport. And stop just stop making it so that people won't invest, right? There's so
mhm,
much negativity on, oh, there's fighting, the highlights you'll see is there's fighting, right? There's fighting in a women's sporting event. You'll see a lot of bad news surrounding women's sports, but there's not a lot of publicity on like, hey, this person volunteers in the off season and helps kids with cancer. Or this person, Blake Bolden, who's a BC grad and played in the NWHL and CWHL, she's a pioneer. And people don't know her because there's not enough attention out there on her. But she is
mhm,
such a pioneer for the game. One of my great colleagues who I got to work with at MyW Sports, Erica Ayala, she was a fan turned into like I want to become the biggest voice and advocate for women's sports, and she's doing that now.
mhm,
So I think for me it's a shame that Fox, NBC, ESPN, all these big networks haven't said, hey, why don't we just show more women's sports on the network? Put it on TV more, tell more stories. uh I think that would be I think it would be amazing when we get there, but I am so, I don't know, flabbergasted by the fact that we're still not there yet. We're still trying to promote teams and promote leagues, and I just think about how far these, the NBA, the NHL, the NFL, it took time, but at a certain point people were giving them coverage. At a certain
mhm.
point the media bought in and said this is entertaining. Um so I'm hoping for that day because for me I promote as much as I can, but I'm a small voice in a big pond, and until some people with some good money and some resources can pull it off, I think we're just gonna sit there and be waiting for it.
Yeah, man. Well, excuse me. I definitely appreciate all the work that you do, because again, it's not easy. And, before we get into my W, we gotta talk some baseball, and basketball when we was the ESPN oh shoot, what's they called? The intramural leagues, man.
Yeah.
We was on the same basketball team, won the championship, but then the baseball we ended up on opposite team. Well, we was on the same team.
Yeah,
Then you jumped ship before the season started.
I did. I
And
did.
then later on, I saw why you jumped ship.
Yes,
Because I
you
jumped ship the next year.
you should have.
Yeah. But I remember I gave up a home run to you. No, I was playing catcher and I watched you hit the home run. I was like, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
But yo, those were some good times, man.
I think the cool thing about ESPN was it did have stuff like that, right? Like, and that's
Mm-hmm.
when we say it's kind of a college field, that's kind of what we mean is there's things to do with people you work with, but there's also times to like hang out outside of work or meet people outside of work. And I mean, basketball for me was a little too early. I was not in shape enough when I was down in Bristol.
I
Uh, I
wasn't
think
either.
I think
I want a
college
rematch.
yeah, college definitely caught up with me when I was down in Bristol, but baseball was fun. I mean, softball was fun because we literally played with anchors and producers and
Mhm.
talent and janitors. It was like it was everybody at ESPN who wanted to play had an opportunity to play. And I think
Yeah.
that was for me that was the coolest part. I don't know if you remember, but the tournament we went to with Rochi,
I
that
wasn't there, but I heard
oh,
about it.
okay. That for me was like the icing on the cake. Was just like,
Okay.
man, like we get to travel around Connecticut and play tournaments now too. Like
Wow.
this is kind of cool. So yeah, I think softball was a lot of fun. And I still remember because you were upset because they turned yours into a double. Yours was a ground rule double when you hit it. I knew you forgot. You didn't want me to mention that, but so B Dub comes up the very next inning or whatever, 2 innings
Because what it
later.
was a two home run rule.
Yeah, it was once you hit a couple of home runs in the inning, you couldn't hit anymore. So
Yeah, because
yeah,
they claimed the field was too short.
yeah, they claimed it, but we I mean, mine still had distance. Mine still had distance.
Yours did. Yeah. Yeah. I was so mad because I had been trying the whole season,
I
and
remember. I
and
remember.
it had been a while since I had like really played, so I had to get back in the rhythm. Went to the cages a couple of times, but man, when I saw that, and I was like, "Oh, it's gone!" And I was like, "Oh, wait a minute! Oh man!"
Yeah.
It's like gotta stop at second.
It
I
was
remember.
literally in between first and second. You saw it hit you. You saw it was like, oh, right.
I
Right.
couldn't even try it, man. I couldn't even try it. It was.
Yeah, that was great. That was great. I still remember that day, man. Like it was yesterday. I still feel like I could picture the park. It's crazy.
Hmm. But let's move on, man. You leave ESPN, you really jump into going full force with MyW. Um, when did you know, like, all right, now is the time to put over these women's sports? Like, obviously people talk about it, but you was being about it. So when did the light bulb go off and like really put together the structure?
Yeah, so I had started my W back in like 2013. It was
Okay.
like right before I got the job at ESPN because I didn't know I was gonna work at ESPN, right? So
Mhm.
I had just graduated from college. I was doing a year of service. I was broadcasting, and I wanted to, wanted to do something for my free time. So I had the idea back in 2013. I then got the job at ESPN, so I put all that on hold. And then it was, right when we were at ESPNW, and these two anchors just walked by, and it reminded me, like, man, no matter how hard I'm working here, it's not going to get seen, And like bro, like I was out here emailing people, trying to meet with them just to promote women's sports on my free time. Not even when I was at work, just like, hey, like if you need an extra hand here, if you need somebody to work on a highlight when I got free time, I'll do it. Like that's all I wanted to do was promote the games, right? Whether it was basketball, hockey, football. There's so many women's sports that people just don't know exist. Like, so 2015 comes around and I have an opportunity to just be like, hey, I've saved up enough money. I've put in my time at ESPN. I don't want to be a producer, right? Like that's the path I was on. It was to be a producer. And I didn't want to be stuck in the studio. I didn't want to be stuck in a control room. I wanted to either be the talent on there or somebody who did something a little bigger with the game. Uh,
Mhm.
so for me, it was an easy choice to just be like, I got some money saved up. Let me move back home. Let me just kind of pick up the pieces and see what I can do. And I quickly got almost every league I reached out to, from the National Pro Fast Pitch to the NWSL to the CWHL. The NWHL was just getting started, and I went out to their training camps. I was interviewing players. I reached out to them to be a broadcaster. Anything I could do in 2015 to kind of get news out there. I started writing, even though I'm not a writer. I hate looking back at those articles because I'm like, man,
For
that's
real?
grammatically, yeah, it's not grammatically correct. Like I'm out here just recapping like I'm a fan. So that's when I ended up getting some help though, and because I was putting in the work, people saw the dedication. And so I told you about Erica, and I had another good friend, Kyle Westcott. He just saw me
Mhm.
kind of writing about basketball, and he was like, hey, like I could help you out with UConn Huskies stuff, like I could talk about women's basketball. And I was like, bet, I need a basketball writer. Couple, maybe like a month or so later, Erica jumps on and she's like, hey, I'm a fan. I want to cover some of the hockey. I've been to a hockey game. Like, I'll do some soccer. And she did a lot of good features. So I had built, a team of three of us, and we had some good support from the following. And for about 2.5 years, we did it. We did it, man. We were going to events. We were helping promote women's sports. We did everything. We did hockey, basketball, football. We did Olympic sports. We had interviews on Wednesdays. We had profiles on Tuesdays. We would give you like historical facts on Mondays and motivational quotes. It was just like we tried to do as much as we can to put women's sports out there. And during that time, there was another kind of website that was getting started. It was called Excel Sports, and
Mhm.
this was run by women. This was run by former executives in women's sports, and they wanted to do the same thing we were doing. So I think after a while, it became evident that they were trying to poach Kyle and Erica from MyW.
Mhm.
So I don't know, like I took offense to it, to be honest. I'm not even gonna lie about that. I took offense. I was like, dang, like, here we are trying to do good, and instead of like working together, people are just trying to like take writers and just be like, hey, like we'll pay you more, we'll do this, and you could go here. And it's just like, man, I busted my butt. We busted our butts for 2.5 years, and so it stunk. It stunk, but we kind of like let it dissipate. And by like 2017, 2018, yeah, about 2017, we just let it go away, and my W no longer exists. But excuse me. Um, but yeah, I think now you see more and more people writing about women's sports, whether it's, like I said, the scandals or the incidents. And even now you'll see more features on athletes, especially like on some of these magazines and on these like on ESPN and
Mhm.
ABC and Fox Sports. So I think we're definitely moving in a better direction when it comes to covering women's sports in the right light. I just go back to there could be so much more done with the endless amount of funds that there are in sports.
Exactly.
um I just think that if you turn on a TV, if you turn on ESPN one day and they're showing cornhole and you don't want to watch cornhole, and there's a top 2 softball team playing, and you can't watch it anywhere but ESPN Plus, why not just put it on a network that people who have cable or packages or whatever can just watch it, right?
Mhm.
Maybe you charge a little bit less, I don't know, but at the end of the day, like, it's more money in your pocket if you're promoting the sport. I don't for me, it's just I don't get it?
Mm. Right.
So yeah, I think, like I said, one day we'll hopefully eventually get there. Maybe one day I'll hit the lottery and I'll just start it myself. But I'm always going to be a proponent of the game. I'm always going to be a proponent of the athletes. I mean, we spoke to so many athletes when we did those interviews, and it was just like the one thing that was always common was, man, we wish more people could put eyes on this.
Mhm.
Because that's all it takes, honestly, B Dub. All it takes is more eyes on that sport. Somebody to be like, wow, I want to be like this person. Oh wow, man, I got a couple mil that I can spend on owning a team and funding a team and getting a WNBA team to Boston, right? Like, why not, right? Like, grow the sport, allow more people to see the sport, and I promise you, the funds that people say aren't there, they'll show up. They'll show up.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that excuse me, I remember was when I was working with Fox Sports, and brought in Coach Ashley Emerson, who's she was in the Portland area. And when we put the ad out there looking for video editors, whatever, whatever. And she's like, "Man, one of the best video editors I've ever seen." And like her resume, like literally, her resume was designed like an NFL playbook of all her skill set. And I was like, "Wow, this is dope." And she told me, she's like, "Oh yeah, I play women's football." And I said, "Well, you heard of my W?" So on the phone, she gets online. Oh, wow, they cover us. And just like, I wish you could have been on the phone to hear it because I can't even like I remember telling you, but I couldn't do it justice, bro. Like the fact, like, me, I'm excited because I know you.
Yeah.
And the fact that she saw your baby covering something that she does, and like I could hear the light bulb and the excitement go off. So, and I was just like, I was like, man, your work is not in vain. Like,
Yeah.
I still remember where I was sitting when she had that reaction to my W covering her football team.
I think that's honestly what was the best part, right? It's like when
Hmm.
we'd finish an interview and then we'd post it, and then the player would be like, "Hey, that was dope," or the coach would be like, "Yo, that was sick. That was a great interview." Erica used to do this thing where she would like ask like random questions at the end of an interview, and it would be like we'd have a little more fun, you know.
Hmm.
Uh, so I think just the coverage itself, right? Like my W led to me having a contract with the Boston Renegades now, a women's professional team here in Boston that plays football. They're 7-time champs, 3-time defending champs. Like I, I would have never known about being able to go cover women's football or cover soccer or anything like that if it weren't for being able to see it at a young age. And that's why it's so important to get it out there, because the more people see it, the more they'll be like, "Oh, this is cool. I know this," or "Oh, I could go do this and I could go promote this. I can invest in this." And I think that's so important.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Now, looking forward, man, you look at like, all the cool stuff you've been able to do. Now, you broadcasting. But one of the things, like, we know, like, youth development has been something you've been passionate about for people who don't know. Talk about what it was like to be able to go into these schools and make a difference.
Yeah. Man. If I could be a dean and be a full-time broadcaster at the same time, I would.
Mhm,
I would, man. I would, because it's such being a dean is such a frustrating but rewarding profession, because you deal with kids at their most vulnerable at points.
mhm,
But you also get to kind of guide them into a path that's like, hey, you can learn from this, right? It's not the end all be all. One moment doesn't define you. One action doesn't define you. Who you are is not based on what people talk about, right? Or what they post on Snapchat. It's who you want to be. And I mean, especially with teenagers, right? Especially where we grew up and in the environments we grew up, it's such an important role to play, especially as a person of color, right? Like we don't see a lot of people like us who come back and work in schools and say, "Hey, like you could go do this and you can make it," right?
mhm.
So it allowed me to kind of relate to the kids in a way that was like, "Hey, like I grew up on the block, like I know what it's like to sit there and not have a home to go to and sleep at a park bench and like just not have anything, and to work hard to say, hey, you know what, like I could do this, I can make it, whatever it is, whether it's military, school, trade, starting a business. It's really one of the most rewarding things you could do as a person, is just see the light bulb go off in a young adult and be like, oh, he's got it, or oh, she's got it, they got this.
Yeah,
So for me, being able to start at my old charter school was a blessing. Unfortunately, I got sick towards the end of my time there with my Crohn's, and I had to like leave a little bit early. But a blessing in disguise that led me to be the head dean at at a new charter school that was getting started, and I got to implement the discipline system there, and that school's flourishing now, and I was really excited to do that. So yeah, working in a school, I mean, educators, principals, anybody who works in a school who's listening to this, you are very, very much appreciated. You are valued. You deserve to be paid more than whatever you're being paid now. And as a dean, as a former administrator, I appreciate you guys, because you guys are at the front line. So
absolutely, absolutely. Now, before we get out of here, man, just talk about what's been like your most rewarding thing being, a broadcaster. Especially like you've come full circle because you're broadcasting on ESPN, a place that, you worked at as a production assistant. Oh, remember they said you don't go from PA to on
To
air.
on air, yeah. I remember. I
Yep.
remember. Oh man, I like to think that I broke that. I broke that a long time ago. So,
Mhm.
man, broadcasting. I've been doing it 10 years now, Brian. As a
Mm.
professional, 14 years in total. 4 years of
Mhm.
undergrad, and ever since I left. So it has been the most rewarding thing that I've done. It makes me happy. I love sports. I get to talk to people. I mean, I do a lot of women's sports. I get to talk to people who appreciate the coverage.
Mhm.
Who, I go in and I'm asking questions about the history. I'm asking about series. I'm talking about players from, from before, and they know that I do my research, and they know that this is not easy to sit there and try to promote things that you don't have a lot of resources for. So for me, it's been awesome to sit there and see that I'm on ESPN. For us locally, it's Nesson New England Sports Network. So we're up here, and I got friends texting me when they see, oh, yo, you're on Nesson tonight? Yeah, what? And I still get pictures, and I think it's so cool to, like I said, be a kid from inner city Boston and
Mhm.
have an opportunity to be on air, to be on TV. Obviously, the dream is to cover one of these professional teams one day. But for me, it's I've been able to broadcast games at AT&T Park in San Francisco, Gillette Stadium here in Massachusetts. I even got to broadcast hockey at Fenway Park. From working at Fenway Park to broadcasting at Fenway Park, it's a dream come true. And every day I do this work, and I'm always so grateful, because you never know, right? You never know when you're gonna go. You never know if my voice is gonna go. You can't. Life is the most unpredictable thing in life, right?
Yep.
So I'm just grateful. I take it day by day. Today I just had two calls with amazing coaches for women's hockey. I got a women's hockey game on Friday, and then Friday night I'm gonna go do field hockey, and then on Saturday I got a women's soccer game, and then following that I got men's soccer games. So 4 games this weekend. I want games every day. If anybody's
Mhm.
hiring, I want to be able to broadcast games. And I know I look different. I know I sound different. I do it differently, but I have fun. I'm knowledgeable. I make sure that I'm authentic. And I think, to be real, B Dub, I think that's been the hardest thing as a broadcaster.
Mhm.
Is you want to compare yourself with so many people, but you also get stuck. I got stuck in this, like, oh, I gotta be them, right?
Yeah.
I gotta sound a certain way, and I gotta look a certain way. And I think at a certain point I just realized, like, no, I'm me, right?
Mm.
Like, I've gotten to this point, I've gotten this far because I've been myself, and I just have fun. And so that's the goal, man. I've been honored to cover Boston College for 14 years. I just signed a contract with Harvard University, and I've been broadcasting with them since last spring. And it's been fun. It's been surreal, and I hope it continues.
Yeah, man. One thing I wanna bring up too, I don't know if you remember this, but because of you, I started wearing earrings in the boardrooms. Because
Yes.
I remember, the thing about Luis, man, you would come to work every day, didn't matter if it was Friday or Saturday, every day in a shirt and tie,
Yeah.
and you had the coolest ties, and you made sure, like, you looked the part. And the thing is I was like, "Well, and we had just, one of them real brother to brother conversations when nobody else was around. I was like, so I said, I wear earrings, but I didn't know if I should wear them to work. And he was like, look, man, I thought about it that way, but I had to be myself.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're right. And ever since then, no matter where I'm at, if I got a pair, I'm gonna have my earrings.
I think the thing that we learned as we got older is the size of the earring got smaller, right? Like, we're not
Yeah,
we're not rocking diamonds that are hanging, right?
yeah,
But no, and I think, even now I go to my broadcast. I mean, obviously I got earmuffs on when I'm doing my broadcast, but like
yeah. So that hurts.
I'm still rocking it, and
Hmm.
um for me it's like you said, it's about being authentic. And if you want to be you to your best ability, then you being you 100% is the only way you're going to be the best of your ability.
Exactly.
So I think one of the things that I appreciate you for is we've always kept each other humble, right? we've
Yeah.
always we've always acknowledged that we worked extremely hard to get to where we've gotten to. And it's important. It's important to have those conversations and to acknowledge that with your friends and be like, man, I'm proud of you. I love you, bro. Like this is dope. I finally got onto breaking through glass ceilings with B Dub, and it's awesome, bro. And I see you shining, and I think that's so great for you. And I'm just proud of you, man. I think you're doing amazing work out here too.
I appreciate it, brother, man. It's been a journey, and we're not done yet by no means. It's so much. But I gotta ask you this before we get out of here, man. I always ask everybody this question: when did you break through the glass ceiling? When you look back at your career and you look at everything you've done, when did you realize like you were living in your purpose and you were like, I got this. I'm pretty good at what I'm doing.
Honestly, more recently. It
Okay.
was definitely more recently. I think for a long time in my life, I thought I had a certain path and I had to go through that path, right? Like there was a
Hmm.
certain road that I had to take and I couldn't veer off that road. You learn that life is about bumps and bruises and you got to get up and keep going and pushing forward. So for me, it was like I said, I had this idea that I had to be somebody else. I had to be like a certain broadcaster. I had to be a certain person, and I lost my authentic self. I lost who I was originally and who how prideful I was and how happy I
Hmm.
was. And I think just having an opportunity to sign that contract with Harvard, knowing that for 10 years I've been at one place doing games for one institution. And when I got out there and I interviewed for jobs, a lot of people were like, "Oh, I know you. Oh yeah, I've heard you before." And so I'm not, I wasn't just hiding in a shadow. I had a name out there, and people knew me, and I just got to embrace that, and I continue to embrace that now, and just kind of like I said, just be me and have fun doing the games that I'm doing. And so yeah, I think it was probably more recently after the pandemic. Probably during the pandemic it started,
Hmm.
but definitely after the pandemic when I got that contract with Harvard University, it was like, all right, Lou, you a beast. You could do this, you know.
Yes, sir. Man, let the people know where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter at Lewis_MyW. Also, Sanchez on Sports. You can find some random tweets and stuff out there on Sanchez on Sports. But yeah, you can tune into any Boston College or Harvard Athletic. Usually, any of their women's hockey, football, lacrosse, anything like that. You can catch me on those games. I usually put out a schedule on my Twitter, so you can find that out there. But yeah, I'm excited to cover games this year. It's kind of season's just getting underway, so broadcast season just getting started, so we're excited.
Man, I am proud of you, bro. I appreciate you. This been like I said, it's been a long time coming. Life been taking us all over, but I'm glad we finally here. I'm glad people finally gonna get a chance to hear this conversation, especially people who need a little bit of inspiration or who just want to hear some good stories. So, I'm glad they're able to do that. I also want to thank you for purchasing a shirt on foryourwear.com. I really appreciate that. I hope I did that right. That wasn't even a built-in ad. I just
No,
was
no,
thanking
look,
you.
hey, I saw that. I saw the shirt and I was like, "Ooh, that's nice." And
Oh, man, I
you know,
appreciate
you
that.
know me in colors. So when I
Yeah.
saw like bright colors, I'm like, "Oh, I love that!" Like I need me one of those. So,
I mean,
and shout out to for your wear, right? Yo, they are
mhm.
awesome. The quality was awesome. Was it the shipping was quick. I thought I was gonna have to wait like a year, because sometimes, especially during the pandemic, you had to wait like a
Yeah.
long time for merchandise. So no, that was awesome, and so I appreciate it, and I'll rock more merch. I know it's hoodie season, so
Shout out to Blue, man. Blue Magic Grind. He was also here on Breaking Through Glass Ceilings last year. It's funny because like I met Blue. He's the co-host of the Mixed Tag Show. It's a wrestling podcast. Shout out to him and Jenna. And when we recorded his episode, it was like right after we had just finished, Big E had cashed in his money in the bank to win the WWE championship. So it's like I'm interviewing him, and now history is being made because we're getting a uh, fourth black WWE champion right in front of like our eyes. Like he was like,
you
Big
just
E's
watching it.
cashing in. I was
That's
like, oh
crazy.
wait, turn this on. So it was just like that was just like a moment, like wow. But man, I definitely appreciate you, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, do not let anybody place a ceiling above your success. So long, everybody.